Chapter 1121. Difficulty. After all, there is absolutely no information about them, and it is not clear where the two are, but in fact Gongyi and Aruma have been going deep into the cave. After all, if you want to help someone, you must help to the end to find out some secrets about this place. But no one thought that the two people behind them would enter the cave. If Gongyi knew about it, he would definitely not venture into this cave. There is nothing more important than life. If the two of them continue to follow up. If so, there will definitely be problems. At this time, Aruma saw a light in the gap on the side. Could it be that the two are connected? Without any hesitation, he directly greeted Gongyi, and the two of them used another beam of light to illuminate the place. Seeing clearly, the other end of the gap turned out to be a natural world with the sound of birds and flowers. Directly opposite them is a swimming pool. It can be said that the water is very clear. It is a place in a fairyland, but why it appears behind such a dark cave? Is there some hidden secret here? Are you sure you can enter this place? I think it's a little weird. If something goes wrong, the two of us will definitely be fully responsible. Then what I can do? I can't help, and you must have been looking forward to Mayer's appearance for a long time. How can we make him accept the fact that he has already been exterminated? It's better to continue like this. Maybe there can be some hope. After hearing this sentence, Gongyi was naturally inconvenient to say anything more, so he simply let him do it. After all, this matter is not something that he can figure out by himself, but this is the situation now. The rocks that Aruma and Gongyi were fumbling around, hoping to find a door that would open over there. But in fact there is no Gongyi. There are some impatient trifles. I punched the stone wall in front of me, but I found that it was like a pile of sand. When I touched it lightly, it shattered like this. There are still some incomprehensible things on the face of Aruma. I believe it. How can it be solved so easily? I thought it was an obstruction in this place, but it was too simple. Gongyi smiled lightly, and then waved his hand, signaling Aruma to keep up with his pace. People just walked past like that. I have to say that if you ignore the ruins outside, the place is still very beautiful. No wonder Mayer always wanted to come back to this place, but he walked so far without looking at anyone. Who is the intruder? Our place. Just when the two were still there, when questioning why people, suddenly there were a lot of soul-like things around, and the two people were surrounded by water. At this time, Gongyi was holding Aruma tightly, for fear she got lost, and what he was holding in his hand was his next breakthrough, and he was going to break through a point. It was a piece of jade that was picked up from outside. If you guessed correctly, it should have been too late to enter when you were fleeing, so it is said that it was left in that place. Now I will confront them. Maybe I can still use a special identity was mixed in. At this time, their side was like a village chief, and they also noticed the jade pendants held in Gongyi and Aruma's hands. At this time, their faces stiffened, as if they had encountered something strange that they hadn't encountered for many years. This scene made Gongyi a little bit puzzled. Shouldn't it be like seeing a relative hurry up and recruit from the truth, or you will die in this place today? Person next to him quickly stood up and shouted at them. At this time, the village chief picked up the scepter in his hand and held it up very high, as if to signal everyone not to speak. The injuries slowly stopped. At this time, the village chief put down the scepter, and then gently uncovered a layer of something different on her body, and then her real body was exposed in front of everyone. It turned out that they were all similar to half-human, half-beast body. No wonder it should be covered with this thing, but why isn't Mayer like this? Isn't he from this place? But the aura between that demon and these people can be said to be exactly the same. There's that special smell. Do you have anything to do with the devil's sword? Hearing this and that, the village chief who had just walked over to Gongyi, his face turned black, and he couldn't help but take a step back. At this time, Gongyi was a little bit stunned. Did they still have any fear of the devil's sword? Do you want to see the underlined version of the novel? Please download Filu Novel. Read the latest chapter. Baidu search 99 Playmates to find 99 Novel Network. Chapter 1122, Secret Realm, 2nd. But the aura on their body is So, you are in the process of their continuous retreat. Gongyi is also observing the expressions on their faces. The village chief is actually the most incomprehensible. He is the first one to take off the clothes on that body and let himself see what kind of people they are. Not monsters, just a group of people. However, he was wearing a layer of clothes similar to protective clothing, and after the village chief calmed down, he waved to him to signal Gongyi to go over. At this time, Gongyi was still confused, but he still followed his wave and walked away. In the past, it is not difficult to see that this person and mayor must be related. After all, some of the marks on their bodies are the same, and there is something similar to a birthmark on Meyer's arm, but every time Meyer just says it's a tattoo-like thing, a child born on that island will be tattooed with this thing at birth. I take the liberty to ask, what is this tattoo on your arm? At this time, the village chief sighed, as if he had thought of a topic that was difficult to look directly at, and then there were some annoyed and pale expressions on his face. This thing is not a tattoo, but an ancestral curse. Only people with this mark will be subject to this curse, but if it is the same bloodline as our oranges but has no tattoos, it is estimated that less than 5 days after the child is born, they will die suddenly, but whoever has this tattoo will be cursed for life. So whether you choose to get a tattoo or choose to refuse, in fact, the end is the same, it's just that you come earlier and later. At this time, Gongyi doesn't. I was shocked. If this is the case, then what should I do? I definitely won't let it disappear like this, but at the same time, I don't know how to remove this mark. Gongyi asked if there is any. Wipe off the tattoo, and the other side can transfer the cursed mark to another place. There is a way, as long as one person is willing to bear the consequences of this curse for him. All this can be done, but you must know that this curse can be said to be a hell-like thing. If anyone can accept it, he will also encounter the same torture as him in the next life, and this can be passed on to future generations. After hearing this, Aruma couldn't help but change a bit. Who can cast such a vicious curse? Isn't it enough for him? Even someone who has to pass on his face. This is not to let their ancestors live together for generations. In an inexplicable fear, at this time, the village chief saw that his hand was passing through his body, and he couldn't really touch it. Could it be that the next thing he just followed was not a layer of clothes, but a covered with a piece of clothing that allows him to see his real body? We are all soul bodies, and we were burned to death by a fire many years ago, so when I saw you holding that jade pendant, I was actually a little surprised. I hope you can keep it more and more away from us. A little further, that thing can carry our soul. But at the same time, he can also obliterate a person's will, only when we clansmen entered this jade pendant and were sharpened to the point of not knowing anything, could they be reincarnated. But everyone has faith, so we stayed in this place for so many years, just to wait for that. A descendant who was sent away, let him come back to save us. Who would have thought that she didn't wait, but waiting for the two of you. At this time, Aruma and Gongyi couldn't help looking at each other. The descendant they were talking about should be Mayor. What the old man said was completely consistent with the fire that Mayor said. You can go out quickly, then bring him in, and let him help save people together. Actually, that person has already come, but in order to avoid danger to his life, we said we left him outside, or you wait for us for a while. And we will bring him in soon. At this time, the village chief's eyes lit up, but then dimmed again, as if he had thought of something he shouldn't do. During this time, Gongyi appeared a bit, and the life-saving medicines and methods were already in place. In front of him, is there anything else that can make him feel discouraged? A villager around saw the village chief's appearance, so he simply waved his hand, letting himself do it, and then told Gongyi about the incident. I have to say, when they said this sentence, they all had a rather tragic expression on their faces. It can be said that a fire that year should have destroyed all their things. Chapter 1123. Hope, 3rd. The child was sent away by us personally. The reason why we didn't keep him was because of a fire, but also if he wants to save us, he will have to pay the same price. It can resurrect everyone, but the price is. He wants to sacrificing himself, so we haven't got in touch with him for so many years. And that is the child left by our previous patriarch and his wife. Those two people should have an agreement to save us, otherwise we can't even keep our soul body now. This is our previous old patriarch, because after my son and daughter-in-law died, I had to take office. After hearing this, Gong Yi is deeply sorry and probably shouldn't have asked this topic, but it's better to get to the bottom of some things, at least for the current situation. Maybe it's a good thing. After all, he like an idiot in this place, doesn't know anything and doesn't understand anything. I'm sorry to bring you up on this topic, but the others are indeed outside. I don't know if she is willing to use her life as a bargaining chip to save you, but I think it's a good thing to let them come to see you. It's also a good thing, after all, he's on his mind. These people have been around for a long time, and he always wants to go back to his hometown to see you, but he always misses it because of the direction our ship is sailing. After hearing this, the old village chief was silent for a while, but still nodded. Maybe this is the responsibility of a clan chief, and you need to consider everything for everyone. But the same clan chief also made another request, hoping to come and they were then able to erase some of their memories of the place. And then if they really find Mayor, it is see their own creation. If they can continue to go inside, then wait for him to save themselves. If they can't remember successfully after the amnestics, so this time, it's as if it didn't happen. Gong Yi couldn't help but feel a little bit incomprehensible. He couldn't even take a look. Why should he be so decisive? Whoever sees it at the entrance of the cave will suddenly recall the sealed memory. This possibility is basically zero. But Aruma on the side turned around Gong Yi's clothes, as if to indicate that he could do it himself. Gong Yi sighed and agreed to the request. That took his scepter, and his eyes were actually full of tears. It's not hard to see, he should still really want to see that junior. After all, in terms of seniority, that should be counted as his biological grandson, and after both his son-in-law and son-in-law disappeared, the grandson finally came to this place, but he could only look at it. This feeling is really worrying. But Gong Yi and Aruma only have one belief now. They hope that after going out, they can still remember this place and remember everything to save them. People are so careless and forget to take away the jade pendant in Gong Yi's hand. So after the two people cleared their memories and were sent out, Gong Yi was the first to get up from the ground and touched a hard object in his hand. So when he saw this, he suddenly remembered all the past. It seems that these people are really careless. But may or may not save everyone's life this time. He has to persuade her to go, but even if he doesn't say it, he will definitely do it. After all, it belongs to her family. After reaching the corner of the hole, Gong Yi took out the life card on him. Only with this thing can they find their whereabouts, but Meyer's has been flickering. He is also considered, before. For those who have joined the pirates for a long time, it is impossible for this signal to be unstable. So for Gong Yi also has some scruples, but also Lanying and Bobo are always there. Twinkle, are they together? But where they are now, will it be some dangerous place? Otherwise, how could their heart rate be so fast? And Aruma stayed with him, no matter what the situation was. But Lanying and Mayor's opinions still made him very worried, so Gong Yi turned his head and discussed it with Aruma. The two planned to split up and settle the matter first, otherwise they would all pile up to the end. I am afraid it is also a difficult thing to solve. You go this way, I'll go straight over there, and if there is any information to report, you can just write a line on this piece of paper, it will dissipate, and then it will be passed on to me. On the one hand, but at the same time, you should also pay attention to the environmental problems of this place. After you come in, there is a gloomy feeling that lingers. Aruma nodded, and then the two parted ways and went to find Meyer. Chapter 1124, Trading. This time, Lanying and Mayer were huddled behind the rock. They didn't know what kind of creature was outside, but they couldn't tell. Or maybe he just wanted to rest, or to stop Meyer and let him not go anywhere else. I have already recognized it. This place must be my home, and I am very familiar with the burnt trace, but I just don't know where those people went. After hearing this, Lan Ying couldn't help but stunned for a moment. It turned out that he knew that this place was her previous residence, but why did those people survive after it was burned down? Meyer pointed to the row of jade pendants on his body. Small print. This thing was handed down from my ancestors. After I was abandoned before, this jade pendant has been with me until I found out that under this environment, it will map out another row of small characters, with small characters on the top. The content written is also very conspicuous. In this cave, there is another world where people can survive. It's an ideal world, you can have whatever you want, and there's no quarrels and complications, so I think they should be there, otherwise there's no way to explain this matter. At this time, I asked again, how should they find someone? After all, it is probably still a very difficult thing to slip away under the eyes of that evil dragon. But the other party didn't seem to want to entangle them, and after seeing the other party's face just now, that person left quickly without looking back at Meyer and Lan Ying, as if he was escaping from some fact. It's out of my budget, but I still have to adjust some of my current plans in a short time. He will definitely not come back for a while, we too have to rush up in a short time, and then save the people, find Aruma and Gongyi first. But you must keep the information for me on this jade pendant, I am afraid that someone is secretly just staring at this thing. After all, before entering the cave, I always feel that some people are following me, and I am not sure. Who is it? Lan Ying nodded and didn't say more. After all, looking at the current situation, finding the two of them is undoubtedly the best solution for now, but there is one thing that makes me tense. Since I have this jade pendant, I can't go straight to that one. Where is it? Why do you still have to turn around in this place? But after all, it is not your own, the residence you have known before, and you have no right to express your opinion, just have some doubts. Of course, under such circumstances, Sakura did not forget to worry about her. After all, there were some echoes going back and forth in this place, which sounded very intimidating. If you guessed correctly, this should be left behind some grievances. This intersection seems to be the place where they lived before. Yupei obviously had a particularly hot reaction when approaching this place. Why don't we go in and take a look? After hearing this, the two of them didn't hesitate. Just when they turned the corner, two figures suddenly jumped out from the inside. Lan Ying didn't even think about pulling Meyer directly behind her, wanting to protect her. Maybe at this time, Meyer also showed the devil's sword. When she saw the face of the person in front of her, she couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. She didn't expect Gongyi and Aruma to hide in this place. Gongyi, he smiled softly. I knew that your kid is not a fuel-efficient lamp, and I thought I could keep you out, but now it seems that I'm thinking too much, but I didn't expect Lan Ying to be unable to stop you, but it's you who are so stubborn. Your character, I'm afraid only Bobo can hold you back. At this time, when I looked at Lan Ying again, I found that Bobo was holding in his arms, and his face stiffened. Everyone should have come in now. No, and you, is he going to pick them up over there? Well, anyway, he wasn't too involved in his previous actions. It is a good thing to have one person guarding the ship, otherwise there will be no one to remind the ship when the Navy is coming. In the end, it is not because of the enemy. Then Gongyi and Aruma exchanged the information they just got. At this time, Lan Ying couldn't help but feel I was stunned. I didn't expect that Meyer's induction was real. There really was a special world that existed in this place. But those same people didn't seem to want Meyer to get close to that place. After hearing their words, Meyer was silent, but didn't continue to say anything, as if hesitating whether to save people or not. But the next second Gongyi sighed and told the matter that he needed to use his life as a transaction. Meyer couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief at this time, and everyone didn't know why. Chapter 1125, Curse. The arrow had to be shot on the string, but Meyer was so angry that everyone was surprised. Why did he suddenly have such a reaction when he heard that trust was needed in exchange for the survival of those people? The next second Meyer he smiled softly, and took out a jade pendant from his waist. It turned out that he and Gongyi were holding the same one. It really is something that only people who have passed down the world can have. If those people see May with this jade pendant. Yeah, would definitely admit he was that kid too. Only one survivor was sent away from the village. I'm afraid it was him, but why did the village chief always look down on him, as if he was afraid of his return, which made Gongyi and Aruma both very puzzled. And the people in that place are all invisible. Only when they really put on a layer of color rendering clothes can they show their body shape. Is it because they were cursed by someone before? That village before what Long introduced is nothing more than a curse that has been handed down, but that is only about the length of life. It does not describe whether they are invisible or not, but Mayer is a physical state. I can touch it, and it also helps in my usual tasks. I will definitely be firm about this, and there is no problem with Meyer. Could it be that this happens after living in that place for a long time? After unifying their opinions, I decided to go to that place first to take a look. In case there are some other changes in the village over there, I would like to have a precaution. Meyer naturally has no objection, and took out the devil. The sword illuminated the surrounding environment. When I and Meyer were in such a cave before, the devil's sword could only emit a little faint light, but I didn't expect that after arriving at this place, the devils were like a night pearl that could illuminate the entire cave, quickly emitting light. A dazzling light, without any restraint at all. This made Gongyi raise his eyebrows. Although it was unexpected, it could not be seen. There must be some other problems, but at the same time, another point was discovered. At this time, Meyer's a special mark appeared between the eyebrows, like a special character. 1. Is this something unique to their group? But now it seems that things are not as simple as they thought, and this evil quickly echoes the surrounding air. Made a sound after another. Not only did it light up the entire cave, but it even gave them some courage, so Aruma took the lead and walked straight forward from this place, while Meyer was checking the situation, hoping to find some special breakthrough points. But it is not difficult to see that in this matter, Meyer is actually not as good as Gongyi. The other party quickly checked all the surrounding security risks in a short period of time, and then led everyone forward. At this time, Meyer just followed them step by step, but did not express any opinion. At the same time, Gongyi also found that some words on the wall were slightly strange, each of which was a special model. This maybe only Meyer can understand. But after taking a step forward, Meyer found that he had never seen it before, but Bobo on the side suddenly spoke. This is exactly the same as some of the symbols in his original village. It can be said that the relationship between the two sides is exactly the same. Is there any connection between this little fox and Meyer? This text means that this village has been cursed, and everyone who enters this place will have such a cursed text. Even if it is not, those who are the inheritors of this place will also wear such a seal smoothly, and the curse is passed on from hundreds to hundreds of thousands, and all their descendants will be marked with such a seal. After listening to this, Gongyi didn't. I felt a chill on my back. I didn't expect that when I entered this cave, there would be a mark on my body, so Gongyi quickly wrinkled the sleeves of his clothes. And found that it is indeed the same as Meyer. There is a mark lying quietly in that place, and it is still emitting light in the darkness. It is not difficult to see that this should be a special curse. It is the same as Meyer's, so enter. Well, in the secret realm, I should have a standard too. After all, when I saw them, I found that each of them had such a mark on their bodies. The reason why I could split such a rock with one palm was not because of my own strength, but because of this thing marked on his body from the beginning, that Aruma has never been able to shake that wall. Is it because he was not engraved with this mark? Chapter 1126. Mark, 3rd. So Gongyi stepped forward and gently lifted Aruma's sleeves, and found that as expected, there were no marks on his body, and even after taking off his shirt, he looked clean. Gongyi asked Meyer about it, and Meyer said that he didn't know this. Left at a very young age, how could I know about curses? Gongyi cross-examined and planned to ask the village chief. After all, he should be the only person in this place who can understand this aspect. Meyer, naturally, did not hesitate, and quickly walked forward with a few people. Aluma knew that there was no mark on his body, and I am afraid that it would be difficult to move even in such a cave, so he did not fall behind in the process of walking, but followed step by step. It wasn't until he reached a corner like just now, when Aruma keenly discovered that the hole was sealed, and it seemed to be flat, as if the two of them didn't enter from this place just now. Definitely this place. You see the mark 1 carved with my sword is still here. Could it be that this cave will still rotate freely and change some places, otherwise people who come next time can still find it? Can that be considered a hiding place for them? After hearing Lan Ying's words, several people couldn't help but think for a while. It seems that it is true. I hope no one can find the real hiding place, not even someone who has a feeling in the dark. At this time, Mei suddenly had a headache, as if some unknown force was tearing his soul out. This is Gong Yi hurriedly put such a jade pendant on her head, and then quickly the other party's situation improved. Even Mayer himself did not think of it, but then when he took the jade pendant off his body I found that my head was still in constant pain, and it seemed that only two jade pendants could maintain myself in this place. This is really beyond my expectations, but perhaps this is also a breakthrough point. Of course, Gong Yi also discovered another point at this moment. When the jade pendant was on her forehead, that mark seemed to become, the more it's becoming more and more obvious, that the symbol itself can be seen more clearly. So Gong Yi asked Mayer to turn to his side. It was a symbol of the Vatican. How could such a small place appear on her forehead? This mark is very familiar to me. The entire city was wiped out, not to mention that no one could survive. I didn't expect that Mayer was the descendant of that place. It seems that what happened just now can be explained clearly, but those people don't seem to let Mayer appeared, and didn't seem to want Mayer to rescue them either. Before this, we should talk about it first. If you want to go, you must rely on trust as the basis, and then be the other side of the transaction to save them. I'm not saying, how are you, man, but you are a pirate group after all, one member. You have to consider some of your future life, and those people live very well in that place. And now this marked place is gone, we can only seek other intersections. Mayer nodded and motioned Gong Yi to relax as much as possible. You naturally know what kind of relationship there is, and you also know how to buy it. If you do this well, those people don't want to see themselves because it is on the jade pendant. The line of words written is exactly what Gong Yi said. As long as he appeared as a deal, he would use his own life to be able to regenerate all of them. No wonder they disagreed with this situation. After all, he should be their last hope. They would not have risked their lives and sent themselves out in a small boat. They took refuge in that place, which proved that their parents might still be alive, so at this time, they thought that they must go try it, see them and see if they can be resurrected. For so many years, I just wanted to find my family. What a simple request, but at this moment I feel so powerless. But for Gong Yi, seeing the clothes and the scenes of ups and downs, he felt a little emotional, but he didn't feel much. After all, he didn't have a family, and he didn't know what it was like. After I arrived in the pirates, I gradually felt the kind of life that people care about. Usually, Lan Ying will help with a lot of things, and especially, I will cook a lot of delicious food, which is enough to make myself feel that I live in a particularly warm big place. In the family, and Mayer was also a very talkative person in the past, there was no chance for a few people to feel cold when they stayed together. Now that I came to this place, the atmosphere suddenly became solemn, which caught me by surprise, but that was fine. Chapter 1127. Father. Helping Mayer find his family is equivalent to fulfilling a wish for him. It will not be so embarrassing to meet each other again in the future. Several people quickly carried out a carpet-like search in such a cave-like a maze. I finally found a stone wall like the one I touched before in a small corner. But at this time, the strength has been sealed. I didn't expect the speed of recovery to be so fast, and the one I touched at that time was not at the same level. When Gong Yi reached out again, I found that the stone wall could not be opened. Could it be because it looks different from the one just now? Some were discouraged and squatted aside. At this time Lan Ying was still there, playing with Bobo. While the two were running, Bobo accidentally bumped into the stone wall over there. Who would have thought that the gate would be opened like this? Bobo was also stunned for a moment, and then he did not break the gate, and fell straight into that pool of water. At this time, the people behind him couldn't help but suddenly start laughing. Gong Yi didn't expect that Bobo turned out to be an opportunity. From what happened before, he should be able to see that he must have some breakthrough points. No wonder that Lan Ying didn't hesitate, stepped forward and rushed up quickly, and fished Bobo out of the pool. You said why don't you run slowly? If you fall into a lava next time, how can I find you? Fortunately, this time it's just a pool. At this time, Lan Ying began to think, and Bobo still listened very carefully with his head down, and gave it from time to time. He smiled, and soon Lan Ying was broken by this healing smile. Nagging, at this time some transparent people floated up from the pool. They may not be able to see clearly, but Gong Yi and Aruma have long experience. They found out where those people were by relying on some changes in the ripples in the pool. At this time, the head of the village once again offered his original form. I couldn't help crying when I saw Mayor. I didn't expect this person to bring it here. Let's go, don't let that monster find you. You will all become its meal. Mayor has such an aura. I think you should have met him as well. That person is the former village chief, but unfortunately, he was swallowed by such a virus in the end, which caused him to become the current situation. I'm sorry, there is no way to kill your father. Saved. We also tried to purify later, but unfortunately there is no any. After hearing this, Mayor couldn't help but stunned for a moment, as if he had heard something unbelievable. It's the same as believable news. You must know that his father has always been a very cold image in his heart, and no one can deal with him. I thought I was the pride of the whole village, and I still went crazy in front of the children. I didn't expect that now, things seem to be different. Why did such a thing happen all of a sudden? The village chief didn't talk to him in detail, which made Mayor a little puzzled. Can't he tell himself if there is any problem? He must hit himself bit by bit to this extent, but seeing the other party's face also had that unpleasant expression, Gong Yi was silent for a while, then tugged at Mayor's hand, motioning him to go to the side. You look at them like this, and you can see that they are also affected, so don't question them again. Didn't you just say that you saw that man? Why don't we wait until we leave this place to find him? Maybe we can to successfully save your father. You can't believe their words. At least in this respect, you just need to know that they haven't settled on your father, and we need to work hard for the rest. After hearing this, Mayor was silent, but nodded, which might be the best concession for himself. After seeing the two people returning, these people observed the firm expression on Mayor's face. Couldn't help sighing, especially the village chief, who seemed to have aged several years all at once. If you don't save him, you can live for a long time, and we can be proud to have such a child, but I didn't expect you to make such a decision now. It seems that it's time for us to let go, but I advise you to think about it for yourself. After all, you must also know that if you can't refuse him, all of you will be assimilated, just like us forever. A small place, day after day, year after year, living a dim life. Chapter 1128. Darkness. After hearing this, Meyer's footsteps paused. The old man thought that he had repented and wanted to live a good life, but who would have thought that the other party would stop and leave again? Gong Yi, standing behind him, just sighed, shook his head, and said goodbye to the old gentleman. This matter can't be managed by himself. It belongs to his family and has nothing to do with him. If you want to snatch the problem this time, then you need to find a breakthrough point. You can think about it. This time there is no upper limit of the plan, and it may not be possible to find the old gentleman. If we can, our plan can continue. But if I can't find someone, it's not necessarily. I met him. After a while, we were a group of Lan Ying and Aruma. It happened that the two of them, one of whom had also met the old gentleman, basically found there is still no problem with its orientation. After Mayor nodded, Gong Yi turned around, collected all the previous life cards, put a mark on it, and sent it back to them again. This thing can be transmitted by sound. If you have any needs, you can rush to it and have a meal. Roar, and then I will receive the corresponding information one day, and Meyer and I will also be sure to reach you in time. Then if the two of us are interchanged in reverse, I hope you can click on the symbol of this triangle. It will immediately project a zoom map similar to the ground position, and then you can follow the distance between these two small UI points and some terrain and directions, to find the two of us. A few people nodded after listening to it, and there was no further delay. Gong Yi and Meyer just left this place, which happened to be a fork in the road, and the four of them said goodbye at this place. Lan Ying hugged Bobo and took Aruma to the left fork. Gong Yi and Meyer looked at each other, and then walked to the right. Just as the two of them had just stepped into this side, a message was passed from behind them. There was a loud bang. Originally thought it was a problem between Lan Ying and Aruma, but whoever thought about it when he turned his head and found that a stone door behind him was closed? Why is there such a situation? But suddenly a door fell behind him. It seems that this time, we can only move forward and can't leave later. Then we have to do it as soon as possible to shorten the time of Aruma's Lan Ying's day. Because this coordinator can only use one. So Gong Yi and Meyer both plan to wait for him to find someone before using it. Who would have thought that just after walking 2 steps, a low voice came from there. Gong Yi took out the coordinate system. Found that they ordered a small UI point, just where they left just now. Why did it appear there? When a few people rushed back, they found that there was nothing, but the UI points of the two people have overlapped. It can be said, they are not in this place, but why does the coordinator show here? During the process of moving, the chi will also change, so Gong Yi carefully searched the ground and found a coordinator lying on the ground. If something happened, they should have been taken away by that man. This time, it's going to be a lot of trouble. If I knew it earlier, I should have listened to the village chief and took some precautions before leaving. However, there is another coordinate device that has not been found. It should be in Lan Ying's body that I don't know when he will be able to inspire. After all, when I left, Lan Ying also had one on her body. I just don't know if he will open it or not. After all, Aruma and he have been taken away. When you can remember it is another matter. He and Aruma were carried on the shoulders by a man, and they bumped all the way to an inexplicable place. That place was like a small house was built in the cave. A door was opened, and the two of them were thrown on the ground. Then the burly man immediately closed the door. At this time, Lan Ying suddenly remembered something. A flash of inspiration flashed on his body and kept rummaging. Alma on the side was very surprised, looking at him and didn't know what he was doing. Your coordinator dropped. After hearing this, Aruma was stunned for a moment, and then began to look for it in her car, only to find that she really seemed to have lost it. After pressing the switch, it might be because the man was huge and bumpy. Accidentally dropped during the movement. At this time, Lan Ying ran out something like a treasure. It was another coordinate device. I didn't expect him to have a little brain. Just keep this thing, otherwise no one will want to leave this time, but now the situation still made the two of them more apprehensive. Chapter 1129. Escape. Are you sure that after calling the two of them over, the man won't carry out a crazy attack? I'm afraid he will be more emotional after seeing Meyer. Don't talk about the two of us, I'm afraid both of them will be regarded as being run over. Pressed. Then what can I do? Don't you call me over. It doesn't matter to us both, but the man has been found. If you can't control him in a short period of time, I'm afraid something will go wrong. Without hesitation, Aruma took over the coordinate device in Lan Ying's hand and pressed the button on it gently. I have to say that at this moment, Gong Yi finally received the signal from the two of them, and was also slightly excited. After seeing the signal they gave, Meyer couldn't help but be stunned for a while. Isn't this place where they walked out just now? Is it nearby? It can be said that this is the first time they arrived at the place. If you guessed correctly, this is the place where Gong Yi and Aruma drew chalk marks for the first time. Didn't he realize that? So Gong Yi calmed down and looked at Meyer, who was beside him, and found that there was no ecstatic expression on his face. On the contrary, he was very calm, as if everything was within the range of expectations, which made him not quite understand some of it. Don't you think that place looks familiar? Isn't that the place where you two drew chalk marks for the first time? Things don't seem to be as simple as I thought. How do you plan to deal with it? Do you have to solve it directly first, or step by step? It seems that the two of them should be locked up, otherwise they won't suddenly position themselves. Sent over. After hearing this, Gong Yi suddenly became quiet and began to look at the thing. Is this really what he said? Actually, I found that this seems to be exactly what Mayer said. Isn't this the first time? Is there a place where Aruma left a chalk mark? This is really a level that I did not consider. If this is the case, it is possible that the cave will undergo drastic changes in a short period of time. No wonder I can't find it. Lan Ying and Aruma are two people, but at the same time their positions have a new positioning. But that position is constantly jumping, changing every 10 minutes on average. That is to say, if you really want to find the two of them, you must do it within those 10 minutes, otherwise everything will be too late by then. How can it be reached in 10 minutes? Let's talk about whether this distance can be reached or not. Just jump directly on the light screen. The distance is so large. After hearing this, Gong Yi immediately called Mayer. At this time, he seemed to have heard some useful information, but suddenly thought of it. Although he didn't know if it was useful, at least it might be useful to say it. We will follow him to move a place every time until we find a balance point. It is possible that the two directions of their movement at one time are the same, and the location is similar, then we can meet that chance. To find Aluma and Lan Ying, do you think this is a good method? At this time, Mayer's face also had an expression of sudden realization. Why didn't he think of this before? If he thought about it, the time might be much simpler than this, but now it seems that it is not too much. Everything surprised me a little, but it was a reasonable plan. If I can catch up with the two of them before the change, I should be able to find their position and rescue them. After all, it is not difficult for him, but this time it makes me feel a little weird. After all, there is no way to judge things in a short period of time. And at this time, there is also a big problem on the other side. It turned out that after the two people stayed in that place for a while, the man actually came back, just guarding the two of them without leaving a single step, which made them there are some things that the two don't understand. After all, judging from the current situation, it is definitely not a favorable plan for the two of them, and until Gong Yi and Mayer find themselves, they will not be able to resist this man. And he also had a face that belonged to the same face as Mayer, so he couldn't do anything about it. After all, he had been a companion on the pirate ship for so long, and no one could help him solve this matter except himself. Are you also thinking about his face? To be honest, I don't know how to do it. It seems that after Mayer comes, there are other ways to save him. I'm afraid this time it will be in vain. Chapter 1130, Launcher. Don't worry, the two of them must be ready, everything will come, otherwise our position will not be sent in vain, but will the person outside know about the little actions of the two of us? After all, the one just launched when the device fell on the ground, I don't know if he picked it up. After hearing this, Lan Ying's face couldn't help turning pale, but then she calmed down and comforted Aruma on the side, as if she was comforting the two of them. Wait, there are some things to do or to deal with. Desperation, I walked straight over here, wanting to see if the man had the transmitter that they had discarded, but found that the thing was not on him, at least the low voice did not appear there. In fact, only those things in the branch have. Like the one in Gong Yi's hand, the specific low-pitched sound did not appear. It may be that they will be affected by some sound configuration when there is interference nearby, but they have already been captured. What else can I do? Don't think about it, you must stay in this place for a while. The two of them were waiting in this place, while Gong Yi and Mayer kept searching in this cave according to the punctuation mark on the map. At this time, it also made the two feel a little dizzy, and those points will change every 10 minutes. They must reach such a task point within 10 minutes, otherwise they will jump more and more distance next time. the farther away. The speed between Gong Yi and Mayer became faster and faster after they discovered this. However, due to the rapid exhaustion of physical strength, the movements cannot be so sensitive. Finally, at the last time, Gong Yi found that the distance between the 2 points was very short, so he quickly called out, Mei, who was resting on the ground. Yeah, the two of them rushed towards that place and found that it was indeed a sunken cave, and as long as they stepped into it, they could crack the secret. At this time, Mei, who was close to nostalgia, didn't dare to go down. She had to know that that place was her father, and she just met him last time, and the other party wanted to hurt her when she saw her face. Even the one next to him was spared, but this time, without him, Lanying and Aruma were taken away as their companions. The previous incident can be judged because of him. Therefore, after the confirmed spot was very close to here, the two of them had no unnecessary doubts at all, nor did they hesitate. They rushed over in an instant, and Aruma continued to run, shouting as if to give them to them. Two people provide directions. Gong Yi's voice became getting closer and closer, but still couldn't find where the place really was. At this time, Mayer grabbed Gong Yi, and then motioned him to take the path next to him. Gong Yi doesn't know it was because of something, but he was definitely experienced, so he didn't hesitate. I followed him directly around the trail. I have to say that this is the most convenient way. It leads directly to the place where Aruma shouted. It feels like in this long tunnel, the sound is infinitely amplified. Of course, at the same time, the sense of fear is also doubled. After all, how can people feel some sense of security in the darkness? You say they are really at the end. Although this business is so close, I feel like they are not there. In that place, if you have to wait for several more 10 minutes, do you think you still have the kind of precise physical strength to continue running? Quote. At this time, Gong Yi suddenly asked Mayer. After all, he is very familiar with the terrain of this place. If he waits for the next 10 minutes, it may take a long time, but maybe it is next time, so I say this for a moment. Neither of the two dared to say anything more, for fear that what they said would become the truth next time. But at this time, Mayer nodded firmly. After all, he was also his brother, and he came to find him. Seeing his appearance, Gong Yi didn't nodded without hesitation. He really did not see the wrong person. Accompany him to find his family. In fact, there are conditions, at least to make himself feel that he is suitable. This is not indebted. After all, some things cannot be done for no reason, and there is always a little interest. And his current attitude towards this place and these people is the interest he asks for this time. After all, if you treat everyone peacefully, even if you help him kill, Gong Yi thought about it, the brothers of the pirate group will help. After all, this is how things are. If there is really room for regrets, who doesn't want to work hard for it? But for Mayer, this is a completely impossible thing to do. Chapter 1131. Interest. When he wanted to leave, he was completely unaware, and he couldn't even remember the address of his home. How could he kill him again later? To be reborn, to have another chance to return to this place, and to do everything again, otherwise, it will always repeat the same mistakes. This is also the last thing I do not want to do. I can hear the village chief's unwillingness to do it. Out. After all, there is another way to save all people without sacrificing his own life. He definitely hopes that he can choose such a way, but if everyone's hopes are not ignited once, then this will not help the rest. People are too unfair. Only they are not respected, and only their lives can be abandoned at will. If they really know this fact, how sad it would be. So Mayer, even if he listens to his last strength, he must try everything once. Maybe it is the one time he didn't try, and he lost a lot of people's lives, and he couldn't do that. After the two people passed through this piece of light to the front, they found that there was a particularly withered and old tree, as if someone had absorbed its vitality through some secret methods. Every tree is like that, and it can be said that the scene is the same. Playing in front of two people is getting more and more frequent. At this time, Gong Yi realized that this seemed to be a place similar to a psychedelic array, and he could only leave after cracking all of this, but at the same time, a hand quickly stretched out in front of him. It was a time when the glue could be stretched at will. I didn't expect such creatures to exist in this place. When I looked up, the other party introduced himself as the god of the desert and the guardian of this area. But he wore a straw hat and was very similar to a human, which made Gungyi wonder if he had a brain problem and pretended, but then he showed his rubber hands again, and he could feel free elongate, not to mention can be stretched to any shape. But the only bad thing is, I can't look at the places about my brothers, can't see any clues about them, but the other party replied that I don't know. But you are not the guardian of this desert, why is it impossible to know their whereabouts? Shouldn't all the troubles here be under your control? After hearing this, that desert Ran laughed a little. No one knew why he laughed, but the situation in front of him also made him become some can't grasp, whose consciousness is wrong, and why will it develop to the point where it is today? Although I am the god of the desert, it is true, but I am just a person in name. If all this can be changed, then I think it is natural to write what I want. A good thing. But you must also know that because of the lack of water sources in the desert, it is difficult to control every tree and every target surviving on the ground, and even I haven't done statistics on this place for several years. This made Gungyi a little hard to accept. How could there be such a lazy person? But the desert god suddenly stretched his hand several times, and hung it on the tree in front of him, and then dragged Gungyi and Mayer. Swing forward quickly. After going back and forth a few times, the two of them were also thrown in front of a cave. At this time, the desert waved to them before hanging upside down on the branch. Except this cave, no one has come again. If you are looking for that old man who was possessed, I advise you not to go there. His next person and he detained. No one can take certain measures to grab them. I tried it back then, just to find a toy, but that man not only nearly cut off my hand, he even nearly cut me off. Thrown on this small island. After talking about this, that desert god suddenly kept silent, as if he had said something incredible. Of course, Gungyi and Mayer also didn't know some useful information. I didn't expect this place to be a small island, then it seems that the next thing can be solved. It proves that they never left on the island of Mayer. If this is the case, everything can go smoothly, and the village chief also specially reminded it. There is a secret security that can only be used in this place. At the same time, it is better to take it out directly, so as not to be too late. Gungyi and Mayer winked at each other, and they both understood what to do. There is no more ink. Chapter 1132. Farewell. Then the two of us won't bother you anymore, let's say goodbye here. Hearing the two people being so straightforward, Luffy couldn't help but couldn't hold back anymore. It was the first time he saw two living people on this deserted island. Let them chat with you. But I thought that the two of them left so quickly, as if there was an urgent matter. This made Luffy roll his eyes and thought of a way to delay the two of them to play with him in this place for a while. It's too authentic, so the hesitant look in his eyes also revealed his careful thinking. Seeing this scene, Gungyi couldn't help but stop Mayer, who was standing beside him, and sat cross-legged in front of Luffy, as if he wanted to ask him some questions about his thoughts. At this time, Luffy was also stunned. He didn't expect that the other party would be able to sit here and chat with him. He thought that they would definitely leave after they got the information they wanted. Although Mayer was a little anxious at this time, he knew that Gungyi has always done things well, and it is impossible to waste time with this person for no reason. You said that there is a man in black in this place, then what kind of background he is, can you tell us about it? We are going to save people, and after he rescues people, we can accompany you in a place stay for a while, and if you want, we can take you out to sea and travel the world. After hearing this, there was a light in the eyes of the roadside, but then it dimmed again, because his special ability could not touch the water. Therefore, from the beginning to the present, I have never left this desert road, and I know that once I go out to sea, I will gradually become more and more expanded due to some other water vapor, resulting in a larger and larger volume. There are many times when I want to escape from here, the boat is silent, thanks to the man who saved me. I don't know what kind of task he was given in this place. Not only would he find some people to play with him, but he would also save himself. It felt like a full life, and every time the people he brought back were basically none of them were able to leave here alive. I don't know if it was because they left the world or they just sent them away. After all, whenever he wakes up and falls asleep, he finds that there is a light in his place, but in fact there is no one in it. Once Luffy walked into the room of the man in black, curiously, and found what it looked like inside. It's a house with 4 walls, and there is only one place that resembles a hammock, which seems to be for those who... Anyway, this person is definitely not easy to mess with. I think the person he brought in has never been brought out. If he guessed correctly, he should have died in it. I don't want the two of you to suffer like this. After hearing this, Gong Yi and Mayer exchanged glances, which made Mayer know that he was just trying to understand the information inside, but it was quite unfamiliar to Mayer. Yes, this time things are really outside the scope of their own medical care. And I didn't expect that my father would do such a thing, even if he was replaced by a body, but the sobriety of the mind should be the basic element to be maintained. But if the two of you want to force your way in, I won't stop it. After all, this is your own will. Once you can figure it out, you won't listen to what I say. But I still hope you can think about it. After all, this is a matter of life. No matter how important the person you want to save is, you can't bet your own life. If you stay here with me for a while, you will be able to find other times and ways to save him. Uniform, but I don't know if your companions will live to that time. Gong Yi paused when he heard this. It wasn't a bad opportunity, but it didn't seem like it was a good fit, and if it was too late, they would be terminated like this, and he might regret it for the rest of his life, so I went to the side to observe the expression of the man, and wanted to see how he was going to do this. But Mayer just kept a straight face at this time, and then lowered his head, completely preventing himself from seeing what kind of look on her face, since he took it in this way. There was no way for him, so I had to look back, that. Luffy told him that he planned to go directly to save people now. After all, no matter how long the delay is, it will be troublesome. At this time, Luffy is not ambiguous. He took out something similar to a map from his bag, and then stuffed it into Gong Yi's hand. I don't know what was on my mind. Chapter 1133, Yearning, First. Although I know that after the two of you escaped from this place, you will definitely not come back and take me out. After all, there is no way for me to leave here. But seeing how happy you are when you are swimming at sea, I can't help but feel a little envious. This treasure map is what I have been wearing all the time. It seems to be about this cave or maybe other places. Since if you are able to travel the world, look for this treasure instead of me. After hearing this, Gong Yi's eyes couldn't help but moisten. He never thought that he could still be entrusted with such an idea. Meyer, who was beside him, was also stunned. He thought that the other party was going to hold him back until dawn. But who ever thought that in just a few words, the other party would have sent the two away? When they stood in the cave, they didn't react, what they did just now, but after thinking about it, they found that Luffy was actually quite pitiful, so the two agreed to wait until Aruma and after Lan Ying was rescued, let those people out together, and then ask them if they could improve his life as well. It should be this way on the map, but I'm not sure if it's this cave. After hearing this, Gong Yi didn't. I had black lines all over my face, so how to judge? So I asked if the terrain was consistent, and Gong Yi asked. Only later did I realize what a stupid question I asked, and Meyer didn't when I came to this place. How could I know if the terrain was very familiar? But at this time, Meyer didn't answer his own words. Gong Yi felt quite surprised. When he turned around, he found a man with green eyes. The person looking at me can't help but feel a hair in my heart, and even the cold hair behind my back has stood up one by one. But just at this moment, the green eyes blinked. Gong Yi realized that it seemed to be Meyer, but why did it become like this? So Gong Yi waved his hand gently in front of her, only to find that the other party was not at all. No response. Meyer, Can you hear me? But at this time, the other party didn't react at all. Standing in that place, it seemed as if he was isolated by someone. The surrounding air couldn't receive any signal, and his head had any feeling, which made him feel a little bit. It's hard to understand. After all, the current situation is also a difficult situation that I have never been in. But at this time, the other party quickly took a step and walked to the side. Gong Yi subconsciously followed him 2 steps, but found that he and his map were drawn on the map. You are 2 directions, but maybe his subconscious mind I know how to get there. So he sighed, and Gong Yi followed Mayer in big strides to chase after him. Although Mayer didn't have any consciousness, he could accurately avoid any trap or little lion in this place. This is him. Gong Yi don't believe it. He should have stayed in this cave consciously. It has come before, or there are some other actions, but no matter which point it is definitely beneficial for Gong Yi and Mayer now, and they can find Aruma and Lanying in a short period of time, but no one could have imagined that the place with the sound just now came from a distance, and that it could still be so clear after so long. After seeing Luffy did the 2 discover that the place was a desert, without any clues, but the things in front of them seemed to be a good development, but they did not hear the shouts of Alma and Lanying. They should have, as there no distress signal. When Gong Yi was about to take out the locator in his hand, he found that Mayer in front of him suddenly turned back, and what he saw was exactly his direction, and his hand was always on, flashing Yuhi. The coordinate system of light, so at this moment he rushed up and quickly knocked out the coordinate device in his hand. That Yuhi-colored light disappeared. He continued to walk forward, never looking back at Gong Yi, which surprised Gong Yi a little. Could it lose this kind of light where there is light? Judgment. But I think it's true. After all, Mayer has never encountered such a situation in a place where there is light, and he has never given birth to such another character, but the current situation has also made it a little difficult for me. In the end, I want to stop Mayer from continuing. Going forward, I still have to follow his footsteps. It is possible that the place he went to belongs to his father, which means that the 2 of them may be together, and then watch Aluma, Lanying and himself suffer in this place. Struggling. Then at that time, I will be incompetent for any of them, but now I can only follow Mayer. The other party is walking in front, passing by a stone milk Jinchuriki column. Gong Yi found the drip on it. Liquid. Chapter 1134. Inexplicable. The smell of rust made me feel strange enough. Logically speaking, there should be no metal or anything like the place where the man lives, so how could there be a smell of rust? So Gong Yi just lightly dipped a little of that liquid, put it in my mouth and tasted it, only to find out what the so-called rust liquid is, which is obviously drop after drop of blood. Could it be this time? Has Ruma Shangna been killed? At this time, Mayer walked further and further, and the steps under his feet became faster and faster. Gong Yi then gently wiped a hand, the liquid on the Jinchuriki column, just followed Mayer and rushed up. The smell on his hands may have attracted some inexplicable bugs and animals. I felt that there was always something behind me staring at me silently. When Gong Yi turned around, he found that it was a large area of Yuhi dots. If I guessed correctly, it should be a bat. How could it be possible to attract a bat? They don't have a sense of smell. But at this moment, Gong Yi grabbed Mayer without hesitation and rushed forward, but at this time the other party ignored him at all, just like a stone Jinchuriki column that couldn't be pulled out. Gong Yi gave up. After all, if he was conscious in this cave, these bats shouldn't hurt him either. Sure enough, as he expected, after he ran away, the bat directly bypassed Mayer when he got to his side, surrounded him in a circle, and along with his forward pace, a little bit he moved forward a little bit, as if he knew that Gong Yi would definitely follow Mayer, but he wasn't that stupid at this time. How could he wait until they left? However, the direction may not be clear at that time, so Gong Yi secretly showed a pair of eyes and looked outside, observing where Mayer turned next, and then turned back to see if there was anything. Others creatures appear. If not, they will quickly climb up, and then walk to the back of the next rock. Wandering back and forth like this, those bats also dispersed, and Mayer also reached that Real place, that is a place illuminated by a night pearl. It can be said that at this moment, Meyer seemed to be completely awake in the same way. The whole person stood bewildered in front of Yimingzu. At this time, Megda suddenly came from inside. No one thought that this man was so tall, and when he first heard about changing his body, Gong Yi had some doubts. But when I really see the real person, I have a huge body. I don't know if it can speak, whether it has thoughts, but my head really makes me feel panicked, because Meyer has never appeared on his body. Such a situation. I didn't expect you to finally come. I thought I would wait for you for a long time. Your friends are inside. I have already brought them here. As for the one that is hidden in the dark, I don't need to hide. I have already found your trail. The bats have been reporting to me for a long time. After hearing this, Gong Yi had no way to hide behind the rock, and simply walked out. Megda was stunned when she saw his face, and then her eyes narrowed quickly, as if she saw something inappropriate. Seeing the same thing, this point is out of Gong Yi's budget. Does he have anything to do with this face? He has some doubts about life. Is it true that his face is so hateful? But at this time Megda just looked at his face, and then took his eyes back. Meyer didn't notice this, just thinking about walking in with him to see basically the current situation of the uncle. Gong Yi was silent for a while, and Dao also raised his heels. After all, if you don't go in, if they change places again, won't you be able to escape from this place? And once you go out, you won't see Luffy, then everything will be bad. But at the same time, for the hardest thing for him, it was Megda in front of him, who always looked at him with vague expressions and eyes, as if he was looking at an unknown commodity, which made him a little disgusted, but nothing else. The way to settle it, after all, Megda's strength is different from her own. If you want to unilaterally punish him, I am afraid that the strength is a problem, and now, it is impossible for me to kill him decisively, especially at this time. Meyer still wants to know the truth of the matter. And Megda, as Meyer's father, can't do it on her own, so bear with it. Chapter 1135, Explore. But the other party's exploratory eyes kept wandering on his body, which made Gong Yi feel a little nervous, and immediately pulled Meyer in front of him and asked him to help him block this gaze. Of course, Meyer would not know, thought it was just Gong Yi's fear of the darkness of this place. It was the first time I saw the captain look like this, so righteously. Meyer straightened up and walked away. He couldn't help laughing when Gong Yi saw this look outside. His mind is really quite simple, but the Megda in front of him is different. At first glance, it looks like a scheming big fried dough stick, but now he himself does not dare to fight against his strength, for fear of going out. Some questions. And according to Megda's current situation and the other party's inquiring eyes, it's not difficult to see what he wants to do, but it's just inconvenient to say it because of Meyer's presence. After the other party brought the two people in again, he kept moving his eyes to Gong Yi. Although Gong Yi noticed this, he just kept Meyer out and asked him to help isolate Megda from the other party. The distance between himself, including the inquiring eyes, he called. After all, at this time, if it proves to deal with him, there may be some other problems. It's not that I'm afraid, but I just don't want to add fuel to the fire in this place and cause some other troubles. After a bend, I finally found Alma and Lan Ying at the end. But Gong Yi also didn't forget that Lu Xun lightly carved on some walls a trace. It was not made of chalk, so no one could detect Megda at all, because Meyer's obstruction did not find his own. It was a small gesture, but this time it was also to let Gong Yi know that they were actually there. They passed around the same place several times. Not because I'm too sensitive, but when I pass by that place, I will subconsciously look for the place where the mark was engraved last time, only to find that there are already 2 rows of marks in that place. It can be said that it should be Megda. I chose not to trust Meyer, so I made such a choice. It seems that there is not such a considerate link between the father and the son. Can I show myself some of the previous details, but in the end I have some unbelievable things. You must know that it must be difficult for Meyer to accept the fact that you are not as good as he thought back then. Moreover, as a person who has been lonely in this place for so long, from Luffy's description, he can already know how incredible he is. A person who can be trusted. Those who brought back haven't walked out completely. I'm afraid this is the case, otherwise, how could there be such a liquid dripping on the stone just now? Although he usually has some feelings that are not very sensitive, and his brain is not big, but at this time he can still see some details clearly. Does he think that the two are just fools, and can be fooled at will? So in the current situation, Gong Yi just tugged on Meyer's shirt. At this time, Meyer was still chatting with Megda. It seemed that Gong Yi didn't understand why Gong Yi turned his back after her clothes, so Gong Yi didn't say much, and repeatedly motioned him to look at Megda's hand. On the hand that he hid in the darkness, that is, in the direction that he had never shown them, there was a pool of unknown blood. If I guessed correctly, he should have just finished dealing with the last person. Therefore, Lan Ying and Alma in front of him are not necessarily real. After realizing this, he grabbed Meyer in front of him. At this time, Meyer just glanced at the difference, then smiled at the man in front of him again, and turned to deal with the matter about Gong Yi. At this time, Megda hadn't reacted yet, and Gong Yi may have seen it. He just let Meyer go over with a smile, and his eyes were filled with the feeling of a loving father. Did you see that? The blood on the hand. I see. What should I do next? But his face will definitely not deceive people. He is indeed my father, and it is also such a scene when you see it in your eyes. After hearing this, Gong Yi no. He pondered, and indeed this is what he should solve the most. Since he has the same face, then he must deny it from other places. He is not such a person. Just forgot to ask Luffy what this person looks like. Maybe for different people, he will show a different face. After all, there is a stitched mark on his body and head. Maybe he also collected all kinds of them and replaced them on his body. If this is the case, then this person is too scary. So always include that possibility. Chapter 1136. Blood. Otherwise, Illuma wouldn't suddenly talk about this issue to Meyer. If she didn't come again, I'm afraid that the two of them would sell themselves if they chatted a little more, so she had to remind herself before that. I looked at him, but the other party didn't have the consciousness to solve this matter at all, and even thought that he was just talking nonsense. But after seeing that world, it was obvious that Meyer also began to believe what Gong Yi said. Megda might really be that kind of person, and then Gong Yi remembered that he just touched the stone Jinchuriki column. Those bloodstains should still be standing on his hands, so Gong Yi led Meyer to turn his head quietly and stretched out his hand. Did you see this? I just touched a handful on the stone. If I guessed correctly, this should be the bloodstain of those people, but I didn't expect this thing to be everywhere. I found this bloodstain in those places just now. Trace. After hearing this, Meyer subconsciously turned her head to look at Megda behind her. This was because the other party also felt a little strange, so she stepped forward to see what the two were talking about. Could this classmate look at them? At that time, he found that Gong Yi was stuffing one candy after another into Meyer's hand, and he kept telling him, "Because I don't cry when I go in, I must first appease Lan Ying so that he doesn't feel so scared." At this time, Megda can't help but put down the big stone in her heart. It seems that they haven't realized that they are this one, the only owner of the place. But for Megda, there is no need to make any opinions and evaluations on the two people. They are just stupid, and they underestimate the maliciousness of the people around them. After such simple people go out, it will be eaten without spitting bones. What you two are saying are so happy. Come over and let me listen to. At this time, although Meyer had some resistance to Megda, he still ran over with a smile. After all, what he just performed was a picture of a father and son with deep love. Since the other party is willing to play, he doesn't mind to accompany him anymore. He played a segment, anyway. Gong Yi and himself on the side also broke his true colors. It only needs to keep a certain distance at a special time and quickly open the link between several people. There is no problem, but its body is so big, which makes Gong Yi the most troublesome. I don't know what to do to solve this thorny hassle. It might not be difficult for two people to join forces to defeat him, but his big body gave him a lot of points. At least in a short period of time, two people will definitely be able to subdue him. But this didn't mean that he and Yi were about to give up, so the two exchanged glances, and quickly flanked them from both sides. The moment Yi took a step forward, he quickly stepped aside and gave up space and position to Gong Yi behind him. Between the lightning and flint, Gong Yi rushed forward and pulled out the sword directly. Although Lan Ying was not by his side, he still took a spare, so he knew that he would kill the two of them. It's definitely not safe to put it there. At least someone like Mayer doesn't have such a good temper, but I never thought that the two of them would come in together, but after grouping, I didn't put my heart on my side, which must be a mistake. But fortunately, Mayer took out his demon sword, and the two sides dealt with each other, which was a big trouble for himself. At this time, after the lightning and flint from both sides stopped, Magda fell to the ground. Put away the two boulders in his hand. I really didn't expect that with your two thoughts and brains, you would be able to think that I'm not the real Magda, but this time you guessed right, the real one died a few years ago. I'm afraid you didn't think of it. Standing in front of you is your father-killing enemy, but he has a face that belongs to your father. I really didn't expect you to find out until now, but it is still a little early, and ordinary toys will only be found at the end. I'm not the person they know, and I'm not what they want to see. After hearing this, Mayer was very angry, and saw that his father Jia had killed him, otherwise the village chief would not have warned him so much, so he said that the village chief was because of the appearance of this man and his death. Is it right to hide them in that place because he will pretend to be some other people? The village chief is afraid that some people will take the bait because of this face, just like himself, even if he knows that he is a monster. But because of this face his father's face was still willing to give everything, but Gong Yi on the side stopped him, and his own thoughts also stopped him. Chapter 1137, Devil's Sword. It is absolutely impossible to do such a thing. Everyone is waiting for rescue. As a top pillar, Jinchuriki column, I absolutely cannot fall down at this time, so I did not pick up her words, Gong Yi and Mayer. The two looked at each other, stepped on each other's shoulders and flew to Magda quickly, and a knife slashed like this. When the demon sword crossed with Magda's body, there was a sudden whimper, as if something was suddenly triggered. At this moment, Gong Yi saw the demon sword and Mei. The sparks removed from the Gerda, so I understood. This demon should have been passed down from him, but because he later became such a physique, the arrow of this demon is not because it recognizes the master, so it goes out to find other candidates. Unexpectedly, the two of them met now. This is Mayer's reaction. No wonder he always felt that the breath of the devil's sword and this place were a bit familiar. I didn't expect it to be this big monster. I really didn't expect that the pieces I lost many years ago were in your hands, but you can hold them as you hold them. Since I fell into such an industry, I don't deserve to have this devil's sword anymore. Now it would be a glorious thing to be able to hit me with it. After all, if I die under this sword, I will die without regrets, but if you can't defeat me, this sword will belong to me again from now on, and I can continue to lead him to do evil. Can't be used to do some righteous things, then you will be sorry for his name. At least I have never done anything right with my conscience for so many years. After hearing this, Mayer's blood flowed backwards. Did he indirectly admit that his father and mother were? He killed him, otherwise, how could he have been slaughtered in the village? And the village chief has already said very much. I understand, that man is not his own father, he is just believing a face deliberately and insistently. If so, why did the other person not recognize him when he first met him? How could a real father be possible? We'll do this, and when I ask him I don't even know the whereabouts of his mother. If there is a second giant beast, I am afraid that the two will become husband and wife. Let's continue to cheat in this place, but I can't believe it anymore. After all, I already know the fact of the cheating, but even so what kind of behavior can I do? It's just a dying struggle, but Gong Yi pulled Mayer and quickly cut himself off with the devil's sword, and the connection between Magda and Magda must be done in a short time. Find Aruma and blue Sakura inside. He probably didn't have time to eat it, and when he reached the entrance of the cave, Megda realized what the two of them were going to do, and strode up to catch up. Gong Yi pushed a huge stone and tried to come over. The other side was in command, and Mayer asked him to help. When he got close to him, the moment when the stone was closed, Gong Yi suddenly stopped and looked at Megda in front of him in silence. The other party also knew that he probably had no chance, but he was still there. Violently directed at the stone, Gong Yi's flat voice came from there. Actually, I didn't doubt it at first, but you have to know that the trace of the connection on your neck is too obvious. As long as it is in a bright environment, no one can ignore that huge scar. If you guessed correctly, you should be cheating with all kinds of faces, and I don't know if people like you will have conscience and guilt. If there is such a thing, it's just. The past is just a cloud of smoke, and it will dissipate immediately. Do I want to bury you or say it to you for that so-called careful thought? Write off these accounts corrupted. When you find them again, they will already be dead, and they will not even have a chance to be resurrected. No one who falls into my hands will be able to get out of this place alive. Could it be that the legend outside is false? Is it? When he heard this, Gong Yi suddenly realized why Luffy would say such a thing. It turns out that those people are really devoured by it or made into specimens one after another. This allows him to constantly change skins to seduce other people. As for whether those people can leave this place at all, it must not be very important to her. After all, he is used to seeing everything in this place. And these things have nothing to do with him for a long time, and the god of the desert should not have any dealings. Chapter 1138, Specimen. After the two rested for a while, they strode forward to find Aluma and Lanying. The road was the same as the road they came here. There are many twists and turns in this place. It can be said that it is like a fan of Gong Yi who has never been there. Type, but this time also made Meyer never discouraged. This incident was because he dragged all his companions in. He had to provoke the girders to save them all, otherwise he would face them. Hearing a faint breathing sound from inside, Gong Yi quickly I took out the locator in my hand. If I guessed correctly, the figures of the two people will definitely appear here. As expected, there was a little Yuhi that was beating non-stop, but after Gong Yi and Mayer walked according to that little Yuhi face, they returned to that boulder, and it was only two people who could react. I'm afraid their locator has long been taken away by Megda. This time, it's troublesome. Without a locator, we can only rely on manual search. Are you going to this side or me? If you want to shorten the time, you must do it at such a speed and way. After all, some things are like this. Once you want to do it, there is no other room for explanation, and the two people quickly draw up a plan. Their locator can still be used. When the distance between two people is more than 500 meters, and they cannot run quickly, when they see both sides, the locator will automatically sit down. This is also a reminder to two people, don't put it now that some people disappear. In fact, they can also act separately. But after all, the time is too long, and at that time, Sister Xing said that if you can't find it within an hour, I'm afraid it will really disappear, and the two of them don't want it. A few of them have become like this, and Bobo is still there. They just started to slide, and if it's too late, I'm afraid there will be an accident. The two of them walked quickly in this place, and they kept pinching the pin on their locator table, watching the change of time at any time, in this place. One thing is good, that is, their positions will not change randomly. After all, there will be no space shift in this place, which makes the two feel more gratified. One thing, but some are not as easy as you think. Just after Gong Yi turned a corner, suddenly there was a sound of footsteps on the opposite side. He quickly hid behind a rock on the side, but found a thing like a fox's claws. In front of him, Gong Yi stuck his head out and took a look, and found that it looked like Bobo's claws. It was once again going around from the side. After all, insurance is required. If it wasn't for him, wouldn't it be bad to admit the wrong person? The fear of life was magnified infinitely in this place, but it was found that it was Bobo, and there was no Aruma and Lanying on his back. "Are you hiding?" So Gongyi quickly got up and stood in front of Bobo and waved his hands vigorously. The huge fox finally found a person under her feet. She quickly lowered her head, and then found that it was Gongyi, so she restored her body to its original width and cancelled her transformation. Both Aluma and Lanying vomited out. Seeing the two people in their mouths were covered with saliva, Gongyi almost laughed out loud. After the wave was transformed, he saw Gongyi's unbearable face, and couldn't help but wonder where Mayer was. It was Gongyi that remembered that Mayer had not received his own positioning signal. So Gongyi quickly pressed the button in his hand, and after a while, Mayer appeared at the end of the cave, but no one thought that he would appear with that. Megda, it was when I looked at Mayer, I found that his footsteps seemed to be a little bit. I don't know why. Could it be that I fell into some trap when I was being chased? If so, it may be excusable, but now, things seem to be different from what I thought, at least the fact that he was lame beyond your own consideration. Gongyi tentatively asked the other side, but there was no response. Bobo on the side was a little puzzled. Since the other party was Mayer, why did Gongyi help me at this time? He was standing behind him. Who is the burly man? This is between Lightning and Flint, Bobo remembered. Isn't this the man I saw outside at the beginning? It looks very fierce. Is that you, Mayer? The other party didn't respond at all, it was just silence. It was the man behind her who suddenly raised his lips and smiled. Gongyi didn't even think about letting the glass transform into its original appearance, turning it into a big giant. The fox took the two people in his mouth and quickly escaped with himself. Mayer didn't know what the situation was. Chapter 1139, Hiding. But now it is necessary to ensure that several of them survive. After all, the two comatose people are the most important. I can't let myself rush up to exchange their lives. I will definitely not see such a thing happen, and once Mayer is awake, he will not tolerate such an incident, so he must guarantee this first, but he also does not allow himself to take this into account. As the wave ran faster and faster, the two of them also turned into a small black spot and disappeared in front of several people. Gongyi of the Diamond, there is some sadness, tears follow the wind, you dissipate little by little come. Those crystal clear beads hit the ground, as if there were some other sounds, which was something Gongyi didn't expect, so he asked Bobo to stop on the ground to find out where the sound that fell just now came from. He found a few people. I have come to a place similar to a mirror world. Everything in this place is a reflective mirror. You can see any scene in this place, and you can also observe whether anyone will appear here. Is this another monitor? Equipment? How did you guys get out? It didn't matter much. After the man left at first, he soaked the two of them in a place like a bathtub, and there was some white liquid in it, anyway. He threw me in too. But I don't seem to be immune to that thing, so after he left, I quickly crawled out and fished them both out. Who would have thought that Aruma and Lanying have not woken up until now? After hearing this, Gongyi didn't you frowned. What kind of thing was Megda under here? One should really face up to the fact that the other party is a more difficult opponent, and Luffy didn't give himself too many hints before, just said that this person has something more important, like a heart, in a mysterious inside the small room. This was the last piece of advice she gave. After all, Gongyi insisted on going in at that time, and of course Luffy lived with him. He just hoped that he could come back alive and at least have someone to talk to and stay with her for a while. This was not an unreasonable promise at all, so he agreed. Actually, I didn't expect it to be like this. He also told us that we would arrive within an hour, otherwise the two of them would be completely controlled by that white liquid, and even corrupted some things on the body. Maybe they didn't think it was because of that. Gongyi leaned against the rock wall beside him. His whole body looked very depressed. The struggle just now had exhausted the last bit of his strength, and in the rush of the day, his nervous spirit never relaxed. So it makes me feel very tired. At this time, Bobo wanted to share the pain for her, but found that he was just a little fox, and there was no way to solve such a problem. But Gongyi also knew that the most troublesome thing was Mayer. He was actually detained in Maygurta as there. Just now, I shouldn't have agreed to his request. I can just look for the two of them together. Anyway, I found it immediately, but because of my careless decision, the two of them were separated like this. Thinking about it, I feel very regretful. This matter itself is my fault. At first, I thought that Mayer would be fine, and the two of us didn't do anything less than we did just now, and we even cooperated to catch Megda by surprise. But I forgot that he is the body of a giant and has special abilities. How long can that little rock trap him? I was too careless, which led to him being arrested now. If I want to save him, I guess I have to wait until this point. The two will wake up to decide. After hearing this, Bobo shook his head, indicating that he could protect the two of them, but at this time, Gongyi just smiled softly. He had no idea how terrifying Megda was. That man could destroy all the people in this place alone, even with just a single blow. His body, coupled with some physical qualities that he has cultivated by constantly changing things for many years, is simply not something that these people can resist. Such a thing, especially with Meyer still in their hands. It is equivalent to having a second handle. Once there is a problem, it is possible to start from this point, and once Megda threatens them with Meyer, this is also a particularly difficult problem, so I have to go to the meeting alone. And after Megda has been dealt with, let all the people converge. Chapter 1140, Footsteps. But at this time Megda's footsteps came over again. Gongyi gestured to Bobo on the side, let him change into a human figure, and then quietly lay on the side, not making any noise. Then I deliberately hid Lanying and Aruma in this place. Once they wake up, I hope it will be a safe place. I can't just wake up and faint from fear. I don't want to wake up. Teammates, once again lost help. And at the same time, at this time, Megda is not only looking for them everywhere. Mayer, who is under his control, is also on the way to find two people, so this is also a very worrying thing for Gongyi. For fear of accidentally the horse's feet were exposed, and he heard the voice. At this time, the sound of Megda's footsteps came slowly, and then his face was exposed. I have to say that seeing a giant at this moment was a little scary. After all, there is no light in this cave, only the eyes of some dim bats are flickering with a little Yuhi light, but in such a scene, the Yuhi light is also very terrifying. Gongyi only feels that the surrounding aura is full of fear. He kept coming towards him, surrounded himself in it, and became like a Uzumaki. Don't hide, I can't live in this place alone. You don't have some other strategies, you might as well come out, and then I'll let you go, but only if we have a fair deal. After all, you've seen, Mayer is a descendant of this place, and he deserves to pay some price for it. And if he wants to save people, he can only pass my level. You should have seen the god of the desert outside. He doesn't know me very well, but I know some of his secrets. You use him to threaten me, it can be said to be completely useless. At this time, a person suddenly stood outside, because the shadows on the ground turned into two. Does he still have an accomplice? At this moment, everyone's hearts were raised. Of course, Gongyi was the most worried. Where can the two comatose people escape to? It must be the most comprehensive thinking in a short period of time. I really didn't expect my name to come out of your mouth, but what's wrong with the god of the desert? What about that person outside? If I'm not qualified to fight against you, why would I live outside for so long? After hearing this, Megda shook her head. She was just talking about things just now. She wanted them to relax their vigilance, and quickly come out and let herself solve them, and the two comatose people should have been soaked for a long time. When I went out to catch Gongyi and Mayer by myself, Lanying and Aruma should have already separated. Loosely trying to stand up and escape at this time can be said to be useless, but that's the same for a little fox. But why was Gongyi able to find them and rescue them? When he took Mayer back, he saw that there were no people in the bathtubs, and he already understood what happened. It was no longer safe for Meyer to put her in that place, so he brought her here to find him. Who would have thought, now he is being attacked on both sides. Gongyi, who was hiding in the corner, heard the voice and knew that it was Luffy who was familiar with him, so he stood up directly from the nest. After Luffy saw her, he gave birth to his long hand and beat him. A greeting, Gong Yi smiled. At this time, Megda's face was not very good. I didn't expect that a few of them would meet and get to know each other first. It seems that they have gone so smoothly in this place. I must have the map that Luffy gave them. You shouldn't let this man go. I didn't let you live outside to sell me, so what should I do now? At this time, Luffy snorted coldly, picked up a small bottle in his hand and poured it gently on the ground, and then a piece of dust quickly floated up on the ground, and then the rock below turned into a piece of sand. Yeah, how should I calculate this account? I didn't expect that the water resources you gave me would turn out to be a piece of loose sand. No wonder that the desert outside will only be a desert no matter how much water you water. You should have already calculated it. Come to this point. Even the water I drink has become like this. Fortunately, I kept an eye on it at the beginning. It rains every day in the vicinity, so if I catch the rain, it will be much cleaner than this place. And I specially raised a piece of land, just to verify your approach, but found that the piece of land has become under the watering of rain. Not to mention thriving, it can even bear all kinds of fruits. At this time, Megda's face was also a little embarrassed, and it was naturally uncomfortable to be exposed in public.